Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I am your host, Jordan Jones. For the first time on the show today, we will have a guest on the program, and I'm thrilled to be joined by one of the more unique podcast guests you'll find, and that is the man behind the popular Boiler Uniforms Twitter account, Ted Huff. Ted, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Absolutely, Jordan. Thanks for having me. Appreciate being on.
So I guess just to get started, this is a podcast dealing with mostly Purdue fans. So tell the listeners a little bit about your Purdue fandom. How did it start? Stuff like that.
Sure. So I'm from Northeast Indiana originally, Fort Wayne, Indiana. I've been around the Purdue-IU rivalry for most of my life. My neighbors growing up were big IU and Pacer fans, which meant that I gravitated directly towards Purdue basketball and Chicago Bulls basketball. So, been super interested in Purdue since then, but kind of fell away from sports once I started getting more into computers. So actually, by the time it came around, I'm like, got to get into technology, got to do Purdue University degree. It's really the only option that's going to work. So I only applied to Purdue. It was Purdue or bust. Got in, and then during the 2007 season, when Notre Dame was absolutely terrible, getting our last win over the Irish in Ross-Ade Stadium was the first game that kind of brought that passion back out for me. Seeing the campus absolutely electric really brought me back into the sports fold, and I've been a season ticket holder for football and basketball since.
That's fantastic. That's awesome. I think so many of us from the state of Indiana can relate to our Purdue fandom growing by growing up around so many IU fans. So that's fantastic stuff. With 2007 kind of being the big part where you got really into Purdue sports again with that big win over Notre Dame that I actually remember being at as well. When did you start taking interest specifically in the uniforms that Purdue wears?
So that around the same time was when Oregon was starting to get in a lot of those like back page articles showing that they were doing some weird stuff with their uniforms. You see like a fourth or a fifth jersey being rolled out, and everyone was just wondering, what are they doing? Like, black is not an official color. They're wearing silver. They have 6 different helmets. What are they doing? They're wearing pink for breast cancer awareness. And then what people were talking about the months and the years after that was how like recruits really liked this. The younger students really got behind this, and it was really just a recruiting thing. Well, the aesthetics around the athletics have just kind of increased over the years. But just following Oregon's kind of birth of this movement, I had a roommate who was big on it in college. And I remember sitting down watching the Tennessee-South Carolina game in 2009 on Halloween. And Tennessee rolled out in some god-awful black uniforms. They look like jack-o'-lanterns on Halloween. And I know for a fact that if I get this in front of Chad Fields, who does this uniform tracking for Tennessee, he's going to hate me for it. But those uniforms were so bad that they stuck in my mind forever. It's just kind of grown since then. From Purdue side, we're not a flashy brand, right? We've got people joke about the Purdue grit that Mitch likes to promote. It's kind of an aesthetic second university, and they're really kind of improving that in the last few years in terms of branding, in terms of marketing. And I really thought the new uniforms for football in 2015 was a kind of a cool indicator that we're starting to try to bring that brand back out in our uniforms with the cow catchers on the shoulders. There's a rumor that I've kind of got substantiated, but I don't have the full insides on, but the shoulder, they were supposed to come out in the 2015 season, but with the cow catcher stripes looking like the Adidas logo, but there was a lawsuit pending behind them, so Adidas made Nike change them. There's just a fun bunch of tidbits behind that, like what goes into getting a team ready each week. I know I talked to some of the equipment managers from the past, and just knowing what goes on behind to get the team ready is super cool. Everyone knows coaches have to game plan and everything like that, but what happens when Purdue basketball gets grounded in Nebraska during a snowstorm? They have to get the uniforms ready to go for the next game in 2 days.
Yeah, that's awesome stuff. It's incredible how much you've paid attention to, the uniforms across college sports, and especially with Purdue, even noticing the cow catchers on the shoulders. That's awesome stuff. So I assume at this point, you've been following these uniforms a lot longer than you've had the Twitter account.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say I've probably been doing this for probably about 10 years, kind of noticing, but really not putting the data on paper until maybe about 3.5 years ago.
When did you get that Twitter account started? I know it's been fairly recent, but
So I was sitting in the passenger seat of my buddy's cars. We're driving down to Nashville for the Music City Bowl against Auburn. Just decided to kind of take my data that I've been collecting, really just for myself for fun, and just seeing if people were interested in it. Started out with some really good bump from Boiled Sports early on, and I think we went from 0 to 100 before 3 o'clock, and then before bed we were sitting at 250, 300. And I think we had about 500 by this night after the game when I started tweeting out some advanced analytics in air quotes about like passer rating versus helmet. So I mean, we had some really good early following, and then we've just been kind of hovering around the 1,800 in the off season, trying to see if I can get up to 2,000 with football, but I'm not even sure when football is going to start, so maybe I have more time than I think.
yeah, there you go. You're not kidding on that. That's awesome though that you made that on the way to the Music City Bowl. So much excitement leading into that game that just didn't end up turning into anything, but we don't have to go too far down that path.
Absolutely not.
So, with your passion for uniforms, have you ever designed uniforms of your own?
No, I mean, I've done digital design a little bit in my past. It's not really something I'm incredibly good at. I know a lot of the folks who do this tracking, they have more of an interest in the actual design and construction. Some of them work in the actual field. Some of them at least do mock-ups that they turn into real things by producing stickers and such. I know the guy who does um, the work for Virginia Tech, for example, uh, does a lot of 3D modeling to print out mini helmets. Um, but I pretty much just stick to it from a data side. I mean, like I said, I'm a computer guy, so spreadsheets, databases, and stuff like that is really where I kind of lean in.
So, I mean, I take it you've brought up Tennessee and Virginia Tech. I mean, do most big schools have someone like you on Twitter that takes note of the uniforms and tweets out data about that?
So I would say you're probably close to maybe 30 to 40% of the schools have someone that does it. Um, all of these are people that are just super passionate about it. Um, you've got folks who they either have connections to the school, they have they start building up a network, and some of these folks are now seeing like feedback they give to the university. They start getting in like some tidbits back, like, hey, we really like this idea on putting two stripes back down the pant leg, like we used to do in the 90s. So we're actually going to bring that back. The head coach really liked that idea. Or um, seeing people just give them the uniform schedule like 6 months early and then making it seem like it's an accident each week. So I mean, you start seeing a little bit of this coming back to the community, but you're looking at about 40% of the schools that have something. But outside of Hail to Purple does it for Northwestern, and then we also have the Penn State unis. There's a couple guys that do it for Ohio State, but that's pretty much it in the Big Ten.
That's fascinating. I guess I was sort of blind to this up until, I took note of your account, probably pretty close to the time it got off the ground, but I never would have realized there were so many fans on Twitter who were this passionate about taking track of the data for all their schools' uniforms. That's fantastic. So, with that, what are some of your favorite non-Purdue uniforms in college sports before we get into the Purdue stuff?
So I purposely left this one of my notes blank because I kind of wanted to just see what struck me at the start. I've been a huge fan of a lot of the alternates that have come out over the last years. I love schools that have a really strong brand, but try to do something unique to the community. I'm a huge fan of like the NBA's city uniforms, for example, because they're a lot of hit and miss, but the ones that hit just really speak to that community and what it stands for and what the people there really expect. I'd love to see that kind of concept in college sports a little bit more. But I mean, Florida's rolled out some really, really nice throwback whites last year. Um, University of Central Florida always does a really, really good job in the space games. I've been trying to get like just some fake space race uniform stuff going on between those two, between Purdue and UCF. Um, Classic stuff. Like you really can't beat a good looking like a Bama and a Michigan. Um, but Michigan's doing a great job of trying to ruin their brand right now. Um, yeah, I mean, I love when schools have something like for Michigan State, for example, they did a terrible job last year with that neon green that they rolled out against, I want to say Eastern or Western Michigan. But they've done a great job in the past recognizing that bronze element to their Spartan like kind of model, and pulling that into a helmet or pulling that into an accent piece. And I love it when schools will take that, you know, fourth or fifth color that's on their official palette and try to heighten that. Examples of when that's gone poorly would be like the anthracite uniforms for Purdue in 2015. Those dark grays with the silver numbers were horrible.
Yes.
The new grays are much better, but still need improvement. Um, I mean, a lot of the schools that don't have trackers have iconic uniforms, right? They have two or three. If they do something different, the fans are going to cry about it. And Purdue has a lot of the same fan feedback for the uniforms, but I think they do have a lot of like just interest in general. Like, look, I don't care what we're going to roll out with this week. I'm excited that people are excited. I think that's really where the Purdue mentality is different than like a Bama, where if they put a different size stripe on the pant, you'll get people that are pulling their season tickets.
Yeah, that's very true. That's a very good point there. So you brought up you don't like the grays in football. I'm with you. I'm not a big fan of it either, especially the Purdue on the nameplate. Not
I
if you
actually like that.
do you.
And let me tell you why. The Purdue on the nameplate, like they've seemed to always pull out the grays, and I actually have one on my wall behind me right now, signed by David Blau. Um, so it's the grays are always like a team building kind of thing. Like whenever the team has a really bad loss or they just didn't look good the one week, it always seems like the next week they roll out in their grays. And it's kind of like okay, you're not playing as a team this week, so you guys don't matter who you are. You're all playing for Purdue. And I've seen that come out a lot. And they use it a lot for their like celebration games for military purposes. They use it a lot for charity work around the town. Um, so I kind of like that aspect of it. But I do agree in general the uniform could use a lot of TLC.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point with kind of wearing those as a bounce back game. I remember the 2018 season when Purdue looked horrible up in East Lansing and then comes back to West Lafayette with the grays on against Iowa and knocks off a ranked Iowa team at home. So
Yep.
I guess I never
On
thought
that.
that's a great point.
And I believe that's also the only game we've won on a last second field goal, but we've lost 5 or 6 under Brom. So it's kind of nice to get that little retribution back.
Wow, that's a good point. I can't think of another one. So you're probably right there, but wow, that I guess it makes sense, but so what are your thoughts on the other Purdue uniforms for football at least? We'll start there and then move into basketball and some of the Olympic sports then.
So in case this gets out and the guys from Boyle Sports are gonna grill me for it for sure. I'm a Vegas gold stan a little bit. I like the new old gold. Um, but I don't think it's gonna be great for every uniform, right? I think the football pants look a little bit too pale. I recognize that. Um, so I'd love to see the gold be used a little bit less, but still keep it, do like a gold and black at home more, but do less gold on the road. Um, I think the best thing is our white away uniform works well with every single pair of pants in the lineup, and we have 5. So we got the black, we got the gold, we got the white, we've got the dark gray, and we've got a light gray. Um, and the gold or the white away uniform works super well with all of them. And I would actually not change a single thing on the white uniform. Um, Black uniform, it's timeless, it's good. I think the cow catcher is a little bit too shiny on that one. I'd probably just switch that out with gold. Um, But in general, helmets are kind of where it's at with football. Um, and Brahm is a huge fan of chrome. He brought it to Western Kentucky, although I've been doing some research. It does seem like they had it the year before him, but he kind of made that their permanent, like, main helmet. So I wasn't surprised when Brahm rolled out with the gold chrome against Ohio in 2017. Yeah, 2017. I mean, it was the first big game under the lights. It really reflected the backgrounds beautifully. So, I mean, I wasn't terribly shocked to see it. And I think that's a cool third helmet. I'd love to see keeping three helmets in rotation, gold, black, and the chrome. Um, but last year we saw a lot of the gold being lost because we painted it white for the homecoming game. So we
Right.
lost the helmet for half the year plus. Um, and I'd really like to see in those scenarios having a backup fourth shell that we can paint it a weird color. For example, 2015, we lost the black helmet for 6 weeks because we painted it anthracite gray against Bowling Green for the Hammer Down Cancer game that year. And I really think that with only 12 games guaranteed, maybe 13 if you're lucky, we're not even going to talk about 14 and 15. Um, I really want to see this not torch the primary colors because I think you really lose a lot during the year. Overall, I'm not convinced the football uniform is going to be the same in 2021, but I don't have any intel on it, and I don't really have a concrete change they need to make. I just really hope it keeps a swoosh or something better on the shoulder.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense a lot, especially since Purdue just recently renewed their contract with Nike. I feel like that could be a good opportunity to switch up the looks. And, Purdue hasn't necessarily kept the same look for too long over time. I remember the Danny Hope years brought in a new home and away combo with numbers that were very, very plain. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then might have been Hazel's second year where this current style of numbers came on the uniform.
So it was 2016 when these uniforms came out. Also, just so listeners know, because I'll be honest, I did not. Purdue just signed the new Nike contract yesterday. So that means we are going to see Purdue with the checks on the shoulders for the foreseeable future. Generally, these are 5 to 8 year agreements, which is awesome. Um, so I was actually unaware that we just signed that in the last 24 hours. So that's awesome news. Um, but yeah, we're generally seeing refreshes on uniforms every 5 to 6 years. And I mean, let's be honest. One, we weren't going to see any big changes last year because we're in the end of we're in a contract year. What are we going to do? And also this year, Nike's got to get everybody ready. Nike hasn't had access to their factories for 3 months. Um, Purdue is not going to get priority in those factories over Alabama, Tennessee, Florida's, etc. So I mean, we're not seeing anything new this year for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess I didn't really think about the impact that COVID-19 would have on the uniform game, but that is probably a good point. I would assume we don't see much in terms of new alternates or any major new uniform designs from any schools this year, probably, unless it was planned out, back before March or so.
Yep. And even helmets are going to be harder to get this year. Riddell being based heavily in Ohio, I know they've had a lot of shipping issues. And I mean, I can't speak to exactly the full supply chain, but I wouldn't expect to see anything super crazy, um, just in general.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So you brought up, football's kind of been switching every 5 or 6 years or so. Basketball has had the same general look since 2011. I believe it was Hummel's fifth year where they introduced the cowcatcher Purdue on the front of the uniforms. And while they've had some slight variations since then, that's been the same general model. What are your thoughts on that uniform?
So it's the same general model, but it has been pretty drastically tweaked over the years. 2008 is when they started going to the large collar, um, generally like the alt colored collar on the jerseys. It started out with like a metallic gold that's progressed to Vegas Gold has progressed back to black. Just looking at the black or black away uniforms as the example. The Cowcatcher logo, I don't see that going away anytime soon. That used to be a deep cut on a secondary logo, but basketball's really been embracing that. So I think you might see a little bit less of that going away and probably more about the other elements that are being used. We use the same template as Virginia, with the offset boxes on the shorts and the weird captains like lapels on the shoulders. So I would expect in a non-pandemic year to see new basketball uniforms this fall. We didn't see a new throwback last year. We didn't see a new anything special in terms of like the hammer down games. Those are pretty much just warm up templates that they put the Purdue logos on. Some that you can get straight out like the Nike or like discount catalog. The fact we didn't see any tweaks to the alternates last year kind of leads me to think that we were just making sure we emptied out the closet. But going into a season that has a lot of unknowns, I'm not necessarily sure how convinced I am that we'd see a new uniform this year either, but it's definitely coming. I love the current basketball uniform. I do think that it's pretty clean. I think the black kit is probably the best piece out of all of them. White at home has actually been the least commonly worn set in the last 2 years. We've been wearing a lot of gold at home, a lot of gray, and the throwbacks have been incredibly popular back to the big dog era of the 90s. But the biggest thing I think about the basketball jerseys a lot is that we've started swapping out the big game gold jersey with black at home. And I really don't want to see black at home more than once a year. I think that's kind of like a high alert black ops game that you need to win. Like you need to have as much like good energy on the side. And honestly, the black jerseys at home have not been bringing it recently. There's just been there's something, they were stained for a while. After the Virginia loss, the black uniforms I think had 9 losses in a row. And the gold uniforms are completely opposite of that. I'd love to see us build a little bit more lore around those, like schools that have legendary like uniforms they only bring out in case of an emergency or in case of like major media attention, like the Notre Dame green football uniforms, like stuff that only happens in a like once a season at most, once in a blue moon. Like when they wear these, like this is take notice basically. I'd love to see the gold basketball uniforms have more of that kind of flair. And I feel like they're getting there, but we definitely use them a lot.
Yeah, and with basketball uniforms, you brought up the throwback uniforms. Now, there's so many people on Twitter who clamor for the throwback uniforms. I think I'm one of the few people that hates the throwback uniforms just after they were worn in the loss to Little Rock. What are your thoughts on those?
So I definitely hear a lot of clamor about the throwback uniforms being cursed. And to back that up, they were actually the uniforms we wore in the first round of the Big Ten tournament in 2017 when we lost to Michigan after their plane ran off the runway. And we should have cleaned the floor with them, but we didn't anyway. Or I might be conflating that. The plane might have been the 2016. Either way, we lost to Michigan. I think it was 2 years in a row.
You had it right. That was the right year.
Okay. So we're sitting there. We've had 2 big years back to back getting the home or the throwback uniforms being a problem. But really since then, they've actually been the most successful kit we've worn. And we haven't just worn them in like easy games. I know we debuted them initially, I want to say against like a Nebraska or maybe a Rutgers even. One of the red teams I don't care about. Really none of the red teams do I care about when I think about it. But they've actually been pretty much unstoppable at home. And I really think that a throwback should be worn at home, right? When your fans that have been there for 20, 30, 40 years in the stands, like that's what they want to see like once in a while. I don't really like seeing it on the road. I don't like seeing it in a neutral site game because those are the games that you know you're going to get better media attention on. those are the ones that, yeah, the players love it. The recruits probably love it too because they love seeing like a cool alternate. But it's the chance to for students that want to see what schools are out there, that want to see like what Purdue looks like. It needs to be a primary color when we have those big away games, the big tournament games. Like it needs to be a black or a gold in those kind of scenarios.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Now, moving on from basketball to some of the other sports Purdue has that definitely do not get as much media attention, but some of them still have some pretty slick uniform designs as well. What are some of
Yeah.
your favorites from the other Purdue sports outside of football and basketball?
So I'm a huge volleyball fan. I've been a season ticket holder for Shondell's crew for a while just because I think, one, he's an incredible human being, great leader, and a really good ambassador for the school. Plus, college volleyball is a hell of a lot of fun to watch. So I think volleyball has some pretty cool uniforms. They have a special black uniform with train tracks on the shoulders that I really like. Um, that's probably my favorite one of their kits. I do love their light grays that they wear occasionally, typically just for setters. Um, but they've got some pretty fire kits. They've been with Nike really for as long as I can remember. But sports like baseball, they just got the Nike contract last year. So this was their first year where they rolled out in Nike gear. They were with, or was it Russell before that?
I believe
Could have
so.
been.
Yeah, I just remember
Yeah.
it never looked great.
Yeah, and they didn't really get a big upgrade with it, but they got some new batting helmets. They got some like nice icy white batting helmets and hats. Softball, however, has a really sweet like two-tone matte black with a gold chrome batting helmet on it, which is pretty legit. Um, and they've also got some really fire gold uniforms that are pretty nice. And yeah, for really, I'm kind of using the word fire too much because it's kind of a joke in the uniform community. Like every time you get anything, it's like, oh, drop a fire emoji on it, and the kids will love it. Same with the ice. Um, like go through and look at any uniform tweet, and pretty much always you'll have either the burr face, the icicles dropping off it, or a fire emoji or something like that. And it just seems like that's about 100% of every single tweet regarding uniforms.
That's funny. You're probably right, though. I definitely have seen that a lot in my time on Twitter as well. So, all right, one last question, and we'll get you out the door here. But this is a tough one. But what would you say are some of your all-time favorite Purdue uniforms? Maybe one for football and one for basketball.
Okay, so favorite uniforms. Um, I really like the 1969 script jersey for Purdue basketball. I like the white uniform with the white top, white shorts, but the away kit that had the gold uniform top and the black shorts was awesome. And Men of Mackey took that to the TBT tournament during the start of quarantine here, and they brought that inspiration back with their first uniform for the tournament. I thought that was pretty cool. That's probably my favorite basketball jersey. That's actually going to be the script Purdue is going to be on my groom's cake from a wedding coming up soon. And I thank you. And I always rock a script hoodie or a script Purdue hoodie. That's definitely my favorite logo. For football, I don't know. Um, I do love the away look of the black helmet, the current white jersey, and the current black pants. But all-time favorite really can't take away from the Rose Bowl years. Like the late champion early Nike design. Give me the gold helmet with the black and the white stripe down the center of it. Um, do absolutely love that look. Um, I'm not a huge fan of the super boxed out stripes on the shoulders, but I think that would be a better like North Star to go back to a uniform design.
Yeah, I agree with that. The helmets into the Tiller years were just fantastic with the stripes down the middle, and I really loved that they brought him back in 2017 after the passing of Tiller as well. That was a really
Yeah.
cool touch.
And we've seen that as the logo changed to remove white and make it just be a single color as an outline, You're probably not going to see that come back to the helmet anytime really soon. But it would be great for just a throwback game every once in a while.
Yeah, I agree with that a lot. Ted, thank you so much for joining us today here on Boilers and Beyond. I really appreciate your time. I know our listeners are going to have a fantastic time listening to this. You truly are one of the most unique Twitter accounts I've seen so far, and I will have to take a closer look at some of those other schools' Twitter accounts as well that track their uniforms.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. And anytime you want to have a talk about what Purdue is wearing, I probably figured it out a couple days in advance.
All right, sounds good. That was Ted Huff, everyone. Thank you very much for listening to the show today. We'll be back here next time with more of the best news and highest level analysis of Purdue athletics here on Boilers and Beyond. Thank you so much, Ted. I really appreciate your time today.
Not a problem, Jordan. That was fun. I appreciate it.
Awesome. I'll shoot you a message before I upload it. Probably either going to be next Tuesday, next Friday, somewhere in there. Kind of waiting to see how much news we actually get from the NBA decision deadline on Monday.
Yeah.
To see if that's worth talking about, because I upload every Tuesday.
Okay.
If nothing really happens, then I'll just upload this on Tuesday.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
No problem, Jordan. Take care and have a good night.
You too. Thanks.